Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in the case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent over the last 2+ decades of my life. On this episode, I'm just going to take you a run through of what I observed through the system as far as the power structure. Mainly today, I'm talking about the brand. When I say the brand, I'm talking about the Aryan Brotherhood. The Aryan Brotherhood for the white boys in the penitentiary is the big homie. Their word is law. All the white boys that come through the system fall under them. So it was in the beginning, but it's not quite that way now. And today, I'm just going to give you my perspective, my opinion, my 2 cents, my take on why it's changed. Now, when I first entered Lompoc, they had a few brand members there. And they ran the yard. You know, the white boys were under their protection and under their command. Back then, the Dirty White Boys, which is another skinhead gang, were like their main soldiers. That and the NLR, Nazi lowriders out of California. Now the brand, they mostly recruit from the NLR, but not limited to. When I was in Lompoc, I met a buddy of mine. That's when I met my friend Rudy. He's from Texas MA. You know, he made his medal, his mark, when he was in another penitentiary and they got into with the Latin Kings. Now, every group in there, especially if you're a gang, you always have scenarios and strategic plans that you go through in the case of war. And war could be with anybody, anyone, at any time. So all the gang members, all the organized groups, they understand and know who, what everybody belongs to. Everybody studies everybody's routines and habits. So they know this guy gets up every morning, he goes straight to the phone. This guy gets up, goes to the shower. This guy works at this place. This guy lives in this cell. So when something jump off and they have the upper hand, they can run up on you and get you. They don't leave nothing to chance, because when it comes to war, it's about survival. And survival by any means. When you go to the yard, sometimes, every now and then, the administration will shut down the yard and you'll see the staff members go out there with their metal detectors and go look for buried knives. Their knives and different sort of weapons buried throughout the whole compound. Everybody has a stash spot. You know, this is the environment that we live in. And I'm gonna take you through a few things that the brand did to lose their stronghold in the federal penitentiary. You might have heard of a guy named Silverstein. He's famous for killing a cop. And they had him locked down in a dungeon in Atlanta when it was a USP. Atlanta's a FCI now because they've built so many USPs now. You know, when I first fished in, they've only had 5 USP, maybe 6. They had Atlanta, Lompoc, Lewisburg, Leavenworth, and Marion. All the penitentiaries now Atwater, Victorville, Beaumont, Lee County, Big Sandy, Kentucky, Coleman 1, Coleman 2, Hazleton. All these are all brand new. One of the old ones too was Allenwood that I forgot. Maybe I mentioned it. But my point was there was only a handful of penitentiaries back then. So when you fished in, everybody know who you were. And if you got chopped up, X'd out from one of them penitentiaries, you couldn't go to another one because it was so small, everybody knew everybody, you know. But in the 90s, the feds started picking up gun cases. And that's when you got all the different people coming in. Anything that had to do with a gun could go federal because the federal government used that, what they call a Hobbs Act or interstate commerce. Now, interstate commerce to the letter of the law is supposed to mean that if I transport a firearm from California across state line into Utah, then the federal government has jurisdiction over them, over me. But the way the prosecutors interpret it is if Kentucky manufactured a gun and you bought it in California, just from you buying it in California, having a gun in California that was manufactured in Kentucky, they claim jurisdiction under interstate commerce, which is a malice misuse of the law. But who's going to challenge them? They're the federal government. So that conspiracy, the RICO, Hobbs Act, all that caused a flood into the federal system. Because before, the federal system, as far as the USP were concerned, it was designed to hold influential people, hardened criminals, gang leaders, violent offenders. Like if you weren't 24 years old and had more than 10 years, they wouldn't even put you on a compound because the environment was that dangerous. It still is. But now they've been trying to dilute the USP. They send people with a couple years, with a few months, whatever, because they just got tired of the violence and got tired of the convict unity. Like even though we beef, even though whites hate black, blacks hate white, Mexicans, everybody, all these racial tension, at the end of the day, we come together against the administration. Because regardless how you feel about me, I'm not the one holding the keys, keep you in here. And convicts back then understood that and knew that. So even though there was still endless violence amongst each other, because like I told you before, man, you can't have laws and rules in a penitentiary if you're not going to hold people accountable to them. So when someone steps out of line, which for one reason or another, someone always does, then you have to enforce it. And you have to enforce it by any means. So the story with my homeboy Rudy, I don't know the exact confrontation that they got into it with the Latin Kings, but Rudy's older homeboys told him, hey, we're gonna make an example out of these dudes and let them know we're not to be fucked with. So Rudy and his comrade caught a Latin King in the cell. It jumped off through the whole penitentiary between them two groups. But specifically with Rudy and his homie, they caught a Latin King in his cell and butchered him. You know, I don't know all the exact details, but the guy died 3 times. But fortunately, he survived and Rudy didn't catch a new case. He's right now currently in a Texas state prison. He was in prison for robbing a bank, and when they got pulled over, he pulled the gun from the sheriff and shot the sheriff. Hit him out by the neck, shoulder area. They gave him 40 years in in the state, but he had 30 years in the feds. He did 26 years. July 2021, he was scheduled to go home, but the state came and picked him up. And right now, he's sitting down there in Texas State Prison, and hopefully they give him a date. He said he's optimistic that maybe he has to just stay 3 or 4 more years. And I really hope that works out for him. You know, I grew up with Rudy. We've been friends since we met, 2001. We were just together at USP Florence. We've been to a few different spots together. I was with him again in Bloody Beaumont in 2006, between 2006 and 2008. And then I just missed him in the Smooth, Lewisburg. You know, he has stories of his own that only he can tell. You know, but the story with the AB comes from Rudy. Not comes from Rudy, but Rudy delivered the message. When Silverstein killed the police, they locked down most of the brand. You know, like I said, back then there was only like 5 yards, 5 penitentiary yards, 6 penitentiary yards, and the brand ran the yard for all the white boys. No questions asked. Their name was law. Their word was law. And they were feared. The reason they were feared is, like, again, these individuals that become made men, that become in the upper echelon in this environment, are a different breed. Not just only their capacity for violence, but their intellect. You can't run an organization, you can't run a yard if you're just a dummy and if you're weak and soft. So for you to be a leader in this type of environment, you gotta be a hardcore motherfucker. And because if you're not, someone's gonna knock you off the totem pole. So for the incident with the Latin King, Rudy got put in Marion for a few years. And Marion is a step down from ADX. So you have the USP back then, which is the United States Penitentiary. The next level up is Marion, which is a program penitentiary, like how Lewisburg was, the Smooth program, and how Thompson is now. Then from there is ADX. When you go to ADX, it's a minimum of 7-year program. But most people end up staying 10 at least before they get back to society, as far as the penitentiary is concerned. So all these ABs, they were stuck in Marion, in the control units, ADX and Marion, the control units. So they figured, I don't know who or what came up with the idea, but they figured they weren't being let go back to population because there was nobody coming through these control units. So they say, well, we filled up this control unit, they're gonna have to let some of us go. So when Rudy hit the yard in Lompoc, he delivered a message to all the brand. He said, hey, your big homie, your homie up there in Marion, said to meet up in Marion. Now, you can't just request a transfer to go to Marion. Marion is a disciplinary prison. It's for dudes that can't make it in our society, which is the USP. The only way to get to Marion is if you kill somebody, if you stab up a guard, or maybe a race riot, just something crazy. You can't, like, I've had a few incidents where I had to stab a few people, but I still didn't get sent to Marion or ADX. So what I'm saying is that the shit that you do has to be extra crazy, extra violent to get put in those programs. So Rudy came to Lompoc 2001 where I met him. And he delivered a message that said, for all the ABs, the brand from California, now there's a difference between them, because right now, a lot of people have adopted their name. You got the Texas AB, you got Florida ABs, you got everybody that adopted their name, but they haven't been sanctioned for those names, so they beef with the brand now. But so Rudy delivers the message, everybody meet up at the control units. Well, like I said, the only way you can meet up in the control unit if you practically catch a new case. And the new case got to be violent, got to be a killing or assault on staff. So my first few weeks there, when I was on the yard, the ABs put a hit on a white dude in Unicor. I don't know who, because I just got there. I don't know who the victim was or who the people that carried out the hit was. I just know the deuces went off and all the COs responded to Unicor. They pulled 2 white guys out in handcuffs, escorted them through the corridor. Then they pulled a stretcher out. The stretcher had a white sheet over the body. I don't know if the guy lived or died, because like I told you before, I don't sit around and ask questions about things. I worry about myself and I worry about mine. When the deuces go off, I put my head up. If it ain't got nothing to do with me or anybody I know, I move on. You know, it makes life easier that way. Because if you stick around and look, people might think you're trying to be a witness to something, which there's plenty of people that do that. You know, a lot of people that have a lot of time, they try to work their time off by cooperating and working with the police. But every single time, those people get found out. And when they get found out, they get chopped up. But his body that they pulled out of Unicor still had a screwdriver on top of his head. I know some of you guys like, whoa, what the hell? But it wasn't shocking to us. That kind of stuff was normal. So they did that in conjunction with trying to get to the control unit. Another incident with the brand, to get to Marion, there was another AB there. But I think he was bad. So Bryson was telling me about this incident. He was walking the yard, the track, the compound, and he mentioned the guy's name, both of their names, because Bryson, he's very good with names and he knows everybody. First, middle, last name. He's just, you know, if you listen to how the Hawaiian talk, it's funny. He's like, oh, remember my classmate, Samantha Papua Aluulu, whatever. They say their first name, they give you their genealogy or whatever, you know, but that's the way they communicate. That's the way they talk. So he knew these individuals. And he said, you know, he asked me if I remember the incident. I didn't see it. But the AB that wasn't any good was approached by the one that was. And he said the guy went and put his arm around the other one. And they were talking. Then reached up with a box cutter and just slit his throat like that. And walked away. The guy fell down to his knees in a sitting position on his knee, and the gash on his neck opened up and blood just came down like a waterfall. Like no one even knew that the dude was dead on his knees in the middle of the yard because it happened so quick. Now the other incident was there was 2 ABs in the shoe. When they were coming back from rec, they broke out of their cuffs and stabbed up 2 guards. That one we were locked down for maybe a week or 2 weeks, but we were just locked down in our unit. And on like the second day or third day of lockdown, I was on the phone talking to my little brother Daniel, and I'm young, running my mouth, talking shit. I was telling him, like, yeah, man. I was like, man, this place right here is wild. He goes, man, the police don't run shit over here. Motherfuckers are murking these dudes. And just the conversation was on that line. So when I hung up, I went about my business, and I'm in Earl Dog's room. He's a Crip with Booby from Louisiana and a few other homies. And we're in there shooting dice, smoking Black and Miles, and whatever, just kicking it. So when we're kicking it, my celly, I'm in F block at this time, my celly streeter comes and knocks on the door. And he says, hey, Mesa, said the police looking for you. So I'm like, for what, So I come out, I walk over to my cell, and there's 2 COs in my cell shaking my cell down. My heart is pounding, get the adrenaline going because I got stuff stashed in my cell. And I'm like, if they find it, I'm gonna get locked up, and I might get locked up for a while. So anyway, they didn't find anything. But when the CO comes out, he calls my name and say, hey, Lieutenant, want to see you down at the office. So not knowing what's going on, my dumb ass didn't clean up. So I'm riding dirty. I go down to Lieutenant's office. So I'm in Lieutenant's office. There's 5 or 6 of them, SIS, Lieutenant, and whoever else that was there. Now, I'm a little guy. I wear glasses, and I'm just me. I'm just me. I'm not a threat. I'm not under their radar as far as somebody that's influential or any of that. I'm just another inmate, So I'm standing there in the lieutenant's office, and he comes up and he reads a transcript from my phone call just 20 minutes ago. He's like, oh yeah? You guys run this shit? We ain't shit. Motherfucking inmates run this fucking yard. I got 2 fucking COs in there that's fighting for their life right now at the hospital. If they die, I'm gonna put that shit on you, and I'm gonna lock your bitch ass up for however long. I know they just want me to jump out there and buck and say something so that they have an excuse to whoop my ass and do what they're gonna do, lock me up. So, understanding the situation, I just stood there without saying a word. So he tells me, get out of them clothes, strip. I'm in the middle. This is not even an office. This is like a lobby area. Right when you come off the corridor, you walk into a lobby area, then there's office in the back. We're just in that area right there. And there's 5 or 6 COs, SIS, Lieutenant, whatever, standing there, and I'm standing in the middle, and tell me strip. That's the thing about the penitentiary. Anytime a CO, a staff member, want to see your weenie, you got to show it to them. They want to strip you butt down, butt naked, have you bend over and cough, you got to do it. You either do it willingly, or they're going to beat you down, shackle you up, and strip you out. So, at this time, my heart started beating fast because I'm dirty. I got 2 balls of weed in my boxer. I keep on me because, we just kicking it, we hustling, whatever. So I take off my shirt and I throw it to him. And I'm watching, see how he's shaking my clothes down. He picks up my shirt. He's running his hand through the collar, through the sleeves, and everything. They know all the hiding spots, So they're still talking shit while he's doing that. And one of them looks at me and goes, didn't I tell you to strip? Take them pants off. So I go as slow as I possibly can. I undo my belt, my zipper, come out of my pants, throw it to him. And again, he's going through every seam, every pocket. He's going through the bottom of the pants. You know, they know all the hiding spot. So I'm just there in my socks and my boxers now. And I just know I'm hit. They're gonna slam me, they're gonna find my stash, and they're gonna slam me down in the shoe forever how long, because they're in their feelings because 2 of their staff members got stabbed up really bad by the ABs. So he tells me again, didn't I tell you, get naked? I got my socks on, so I slowly take my socks off, throw it at his feet. You know, the whole time, they're talking shit to me. So they got a bucket full of freaking knives and bone crushers and bars and shit that they have confiscated off the yard. He kicks the bucket towards me. He goes, you think you're fucking bad? Pick one of them up. Pick one of them up and I'm gonna show you how bad you are. I'm not gonna bite. I know what happens if I try them. I'm outnumbered. You know, so my main concern was, how the hell am I getting myself out of this situation? So I'm moving at a snail pace, and they're upset. You know, understandably, they're upset. And they're just running their mouth, talking shit in between, checking my clothes and stuff. So all I got now is my boxers. So he tells me, get the fuck out of those boxers. I ain't got no choice. Either I'm gonna remove them myself, or they're gonna beat me down and remove them. Either way, the end result's gonna be the same. They're gonna find my stash. So I slowly take off my boxer and I throw it at his feet. The SIS guy that was searching, he still had my pants in his hand, because he's going slow because he's busy running his mouth, threatening me and trying to spook me and all that shit. So as he's searching through my pants, the door opens and a female staff comes in and she screams, says, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, and covers her eye because I'm standing there butt naked, you know. And she covers her eyes and walks past us to go into all the like AW's office and lieutenant's office or not. But that incident saved me. When that happened, you know, they got embarrassed too. I don't know for what. The guy fucking kicks my boxer back. Get your fucking clothes back on. You know, because now you got female staff coming in and out because it's whatever's going on. And man, I was so relieved. I put back my boxers, put back my clothes, whatever they were saying. I was just nodding my head, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, and got the fuck out of there. But these were the incidents that the ABs was doing to go to the control units, because they had an order that came down from the top that said everybody meet in the control unit. But it wasn't just happening in Lompoc. The message was passed out to all the penitentiaries. Wherever there was an AB at in these penitentiaries, they received the message, and all of them did whatever they needed to do to catch a case, because most of them all had life sentence. Most of them was all gonna die in the penitentiary. So another body, another stabbing, none of that really mattered, you know? And even if they didn't have a body, even if they didn't have a life sentence, the order's been given. They gotta go. This is what they signed up for. The order's been given, they gotta go. And the only way to get to a control unit is if you kill somebody or stab up a staff member. And so they did that. And all of them was taken to the control unit. The guy that sent the order thought that if all of them came to the control unit and they filled up the control unit, that they were gonna start letting some of them go. But all it did was show the administration how dangerous these individuals were, and he just kept them all. So when they kept them all, their president was no longer in the penitentiary, and it left a void for leadership. So throughout the years, other gangs, other white gangs, skinhead gangs, Nazi gangs, they rose up in power. So now, the only places that the brand have any authority anymore is on yards where the California dudes walk. When I mean California dudes walk, I'm talking about the Serranos. There's only 2 yards when you go to the penitentiary, California yard or a Texas yard. The California yard consists of Serranos and Paisas and the brand. The Texas yard is the TS, the Texas Mafia, with the Menecidas, and the Norteños. The Norteños are enemies with the Black Hand and the brand, or the NFs are, where the Norteños are enemy with the Serranos. I'm telling you these politics because it's important to understand that. A lot of us out here coming from Utah, all of our gangs are homegrown. You know, I can give you a list of all these different names and whatnot, but a lot of these people beef with a lot of these different dudes out here. But when they hit the feds, they got to get on count. You either getting on count with the Serranos, with the Paisa, or with the Norteños, if you're Mexican. Unless you want a buck. But a lot of people don't want a buck. So they get on count. But that's how the ABs lost their influence on the compound in the USP, because they all ended up in a control module and left a void of leadership in the penitentiary. Welcome to the USP. There's more to come. Next episode, I'm gonna tell you, leaving Lompoc, and then we're on to the next penitentiary, Victorville. Thank you for tuning in. What happened? You didn't record it?